Hey there, I'm Parker Rex. I led product and technology at a startup that did well over $50 million in sales. And on this channel, I'm building a $100,000 a month AI services company in public. And I cover a bunch of different things every single morning. This video goes up. We cover AI news, things that I'm using in the field, some commentary on it from someone who actually knows how to develop these tools. We cover some strategy, and then we do a part of a build. If you wanted to see the full build, there's a different channel called Parker Rex Builds. But we've got a lot of stuff to cover today. There wasn't that much going on yesterday, but wow, today's a different one. So exciting. First of all, OpenAI Voice came out yesterday with a huge update. If you're unfamiliar, OpenAI Voice, it's two things. One is the text to voice. So you type in something and it starts talking. And then another is voice to text. A common use case for this is if I had a YouTube video that I wanted to turn into a transcription. So let's say I wanted to take this video of Alex Hermosi about building brand, and I wanted to have it turn into a transcript so that I could make a blog post. Maybe I want to do whatever it is with that. You would use, I have a workflow. So I click on workflow. I would do a vid to text, and you can see I have whisper down here, and then I type in the name of the file and then the language that I want it written in, and then the output format as a flag, and then obviously the extension, which would be text. So that's an example of what a model could do on the video to text. And then there's the other way of doing it. They came out with the new one yesterday that's the same price. Let's see. It's the same exact price as Whisper, except it's 4.0 mini. And let's look at it. So it reduced the transcription error. Let me just make sure the camera's going good. Yeah. So it reduced the transcription error in latest speech to models on FLIRs. What does that mean? Well, it's basically that it's not a huge difference if you're only using English, but you can see in other languages like Bengali and Marathi, all these other ones, they got like insane benchmarks. That's one part, but the actual sort of features in it are really interesting. I believe I bookmarked them or liked them, so I can just pull those up. But the ability for you to quickly build voice agents now, that's the main thing. They're making it a lot easier for developers to make voice agents. You can also see they have custom turn detection. It uses the content of the speech to tell if the user is done. That's very different than how it's been done historically. I had a client that we were building a multi-agent real estate platform. And so what it would do was you'd have a bunch of jobs around what a realtor has to do. They're pretty low leverage, but they're really important, meaning you don't have as a realtor a lot of leverage on doing the outbound or dealing with the inbound across phone with text, MMS, email, or actual voice calls. So what we were working on was building different agents that had different tools that could handle all of these things, and they'd kind of work in orchestra. And it was an engine behind the scenes that had to listen and look for pauses to tell if the person was done talking. And it was kind of tough, and you're still using libraries, but this is amazing. And I can't wait. I think I'm going to build something with this for the builds channel, which we're going to be doing basically right after this. Once I finish filming this video, I'll go straight into a second video where I'm building in public on the things we talk about in this video. But yeah, it makes it a lot easier, and you can see all the documentation here. I'm going to pull that up, and then I'm going to pull up this tweet that I made, which you can follow me on Twitter or X. I post a lot of this stuff as I find it. So this is crazy. So the Agents SDK came out about a week ago, and it made it a lot easier for you to sort of bundle up what agents are capable of doing with file search, web search. The file search could spin up a vector DB behind the scenes. It's all like in there, right? It's this nice package, but it didn't have voice until yesterday. So if you have a WebSocket server set up, you're defining what the WebSocket endpoint is that opens up the direct connection between you, the client, and then the server, the thing running it. And then it'll add the trace. This will go through and add some more logic about the text-based messages. Then if you wanted to add audio, you don't have to go and use a third party. You don't have to do any sort of calls to anywhere. Instead, it's just these 8 lines of code then give you full access to the new models. And so let's take a look at the API docs because they also just made them look really good if it will load. Okay. So if we go into here and we scroll down to where would audio be? Well, it probably would be an assistance because, let's see, audio. We want to just see actually, let's take a look at this. Models. Would it be in docs? Sorry about this, guys. Yeah, it's in docs. This is what I was looking at yesterday, and it just looks really good. So obviously we have GPT-4.5. That's what they say is the largest and most capable model. But then when we go down past the reasoning models, past the flagship chat models, we get into the text to speech. So we've gone from Whisper 1, Whisper 2. I don't know if there was a Whisper 3, but to the GPT-4o transcribe. So not text to speech, sorry. GPT-4o transcribe. Try to say that 3 times fast. That's hard. Can you say it? GPT-4o transcribe. That's first time. That's pretty good. So anyways, there's 2 of them, and they are really powerful and really cheap. So the new one is the same price as Whisper, but better. Lower error detection, but I think really the sauce is in the agents update. So I'm excited about that. I haven't seen any demos, but what you could do if you wanted to see if anyone's built a demo is you just grab a snippet. So what I could do is I will open up. This is just a little trick of the trade that I've learned from having built a lot of stuff. Is I'll open up the website repo, and all the resources for what I talk about in these videos are on the website, parkerx.com/blog. You can click the little daily updates button. And so if I go in here and I wanted to take this block of code, because someone's just going to take that, and I just type that into GPT using Companion, and I say, give me this text formatted in Python. So I'll say that. It's going to run an OCR on it, and I'll get back that block of text. And then what I'm doing is I'm just taking that, and maybe there's like one line in it that I know is exactly what someone would paste, because you don't want to do the whole thing. But I take this, and then I want to have, oops, I don't need that. I want to have some nice stuff for syntax. So I'll just change the language mode to Python. Cool. And I'll grab this await. Yeah. Output equals await voice pipeline. And then I'll go over, we're done here. Now I'll go into GitHub. And this is how you can do this for anything. When you're trying to see an example of how someone built something with a tool you want, you just type this in. So I can see there's 91 examples of people, and it's been less than 24 hours. And now I see all the stuff that has to do with this. So class voice pipeline. It looks like no one's really opened up the floodgates yet. This is cool. What about this? When was this published? Maybe yesterday? Yeah. Cool. So that's how you do it. You can see that they made updates, probably based around this stuff. No, not. So you would go and you just continue, kind of pick out a piece that you think would be in there. So this would probably be better. I'll grab this because now I want to prove a point. And I'll go back into GitHub. If you're not using hotkeys on Chrome, what are you even doing? Command Shift A gets you everywhere. Is audio complete? Oh, it's because I have this repo. Let's do a search there. Man, no one's posted stuff. This is crazy. So no one, okay, because it came out less than 24 hours ago, I guess no one, yeah, there we go. I'll be the first one to put something out. So that is the OpenAI stuff, same price. Now, I want to talk about MCPs. There is a bunch of hype around these, and they've been out since November, but they're getting a lot more attention now. So let me see if I can't find my bookmarks. I have no clue how to find bookmarks in Reddit. I should know how to do that. Reddit saved. Okay. Oh, I wasn't going to mention this, but it's here. This is cool. They trained Flux, the image generation model, on Claude's aesthetic. So if you know Claude and how everyone's so hype about it, they just took all that stuff, all their brand imagery, and then fed it to Flux. The way that you would do that, let's just show you, is they have it hosted on Hugging Face. So if you wanted to, you could just go grab this. You could try it here. But you train Allura with 15 images using this app called Glyph. Pretty crazy. So if I go back, now I guess I didn't have it saved. Huh. Let me think. It was basically a really good explainer for how MCPs work. So naturally I wanted to show you it because a lot of people get confused. Oh, I found it. Okay. So MCP architecture. In short, MCP, standing for Model Context Protocol, allows you to have the puzzle pieces in place so you can connect your LLMs to other tools. Now, a classic use case would be, I want to send an email, so I'm going to type in to either Claude desktop app or Cursor. Those would be the clients. I'm going to type in, hey, send an email to myself about a lesson I learned. And you'd put in the content. Instead of going and actually doing that, it would just reach out using an MCP connector, essentially, or an MCP server that would be running to Gmail. And it is that kind of bridge between the two. So that's in short how it works. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit because it is insane how it's going to like essentially speed up the ability for non technical pieces of software or it basically speeds up the gap of connecting AI and getting good AI experiences for tools that won't develop them as quickly as all the tools that we use as developers. Because we know that the pace for new tools for developers is absolutely insane. So you see a new Cursor, you see a new Windsurf, you see a new Warp, you see every week, right? We get a new version of all of these. Then you have the hyper shippers, for example, Klein, where it's every 3 days. And there's this scale, right? As we go down it, we get to GitHub, and Microsoft ships something new, call it once a month. And these are all based around copilots or agents, something to that tune. And as we go even further, so these are all dev tools, right? But then if we cross that chasm to non-developer tools, things start to get slower. And if you have Blender, which we're going to set up together in a second, Blender's 3D modeling software, really complex, lots and lots and lots of menus. So I have Blender here, and I wanted to make a cool logo for a 3D logo for Trouble Free AI, a paid community slash research lab that I wanted to make something cool for that. But guess what? I don't know how to do this. I can click that. It's not moving. I don't know what's going on. And then look at all these crazy menus. Isn't that insane? This is a whole profession. And what I'm predicting is MCP will speed up the learning curve for anyone that wants to use the tool so that me, not a prosumer, just a normal consumer, can come in and make something simple. I'm not going to make the new scene for Minecraft or whatever, but I'll be able to get something basic. And that's with an MCP. So my prediction is that all those menus, if we look at another example, maybe I don't have Premiere Pro open, but that would be another really good example of a really complex pro tool that will be augmented with an MCP. And in the case of Blender, we're not going to see a Copilot for 3 to 5 years. That's my belief. Same thing goes in the music industry. Ableton Live, a lovely piece of software I've used. I've probably put 40,000 hours of my life into it. You probably won't see something for 4 to 7 years. Now, that's partially because it's just not in the same industry. It's partially maybe because it's not a priority, maybe because it's culturally not aligned with what musicians want. There could be some backlash, but it allows you to make some things. And so if I go and if I go to my Parker Rex builds channel, which right now it's called explains, but by the time you watch this, it will be builds. I released a video this morning and it is talking about using the MCP for Ableton. So you download a file, you put it in a folder. Take Moonlight Sonata, 16 bars, 140 BPM tempo, 909 drums. And I don't need to play the whole video, but I go into the fact that this is totally doable and that someone will most likely develop an extension or something that augments it from a third party. You saw this with Xcode and Apple. I was a Swift developer building apps for my company Map for about 6 months, and Cursor was so much better than using Xcode, and Apple still hasn't shipped any sort of AI features, so everyone's moved over to Cursor. But before I did that, I just used a third party that was called Copilot for Xcode that someone made that happened to be an iOS developer and wanted it. So there's probably going to be some musician that's a really talented developer as well, and they'll build something. The Blender MCP, I'm not going to scratch the idea of doing that because it's going to take a lot of time, and I'll just put that on the builds channel, but I'll just show you what it does. So you can bring in high quality assets to Blender just through prompts because they integrated with Polyhaven, which is a 3D asset library. So you get access to 1,500 assets, and he's just jumping in saying, make me a beachy scene. And you can see every time that it has this grayish bold text, it's calling a tool. And that's how it works is each one of the menus, when you are going in and let's say in Blender, if you're going in and you're clicking on add and then you go to mesh and we want to add a cube, and that was a tool that we did. And behind the scenes, Claude is given a set of tools that are well defined. So if I go into Cursor and I click into MCP, I can see I have 4 different servers that are all using different, um sorry, I just paused. Now I have to rotate the password on my database because I just noticed that that is there. So, hey Siri, remind me to rotate my password on the database in 45 minutes. Cool. But it allows you to have access. Shut up. Okay. Gives you access to all these tools. They're well defined. They go and they do things. Cool. That is MCP. And if you want to learn more about it, you can also jump in their Discord. They have a watcher that shows you when new MCPs come out. And there's just so many of them. It's absolutely insane. I'm going to be going way deeper on this stuff because every industry can benefit from MCPs based on the quality of them. And so that could be a service offering that you have. I should write that down to introduce MCPs to non-technical industries as a way to save time, money, or generate more leads. Cool. So next, if we get back to this, Copilots everywhere. I wanted to talk about structured versus non-structured offers. We're getting into strategy. As a reminder, green equals strategy. So when I started doing AI services, when I pivoted away from doing SaaS full time because it was a very expensive hobby and I needed to fund that to continue development, I decided to do very specialty, like specialist dev work, and it can pay well, right? You can make 20 upwards of 25, almost $25,000 a month, or in my case, it was about 20 a month doing that, but it's not a great high leverage thing. So then I was trying to think, okay, well, how do I get more leverage on my time? And in order to get the most leverage on your time, you have to find things that you don't start from zero when you do another piece of work for a client. So that's one part. And then the second part is actually the delivery of it. So coming in and having structure around the thing that you're selling, it makes it a lot easier, both for you and the client. Because if I come in and I have this really like messy, kind of all over the place offer where I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. If you don't deliver that well, if you don't explain this, it's almost like the cartoon character that has the trench coat on and they open it up and they have all these things in there. Well, if all the things which are your skills, your hard skills that you're selling aren't well articulated and don't have clear price points on them and clear expectations, deliverables, it's going to be really confusing because you can have all those skills, which is great. That's how I feel. I have a lot of different skills. I can do pretty much everything on a computer. But if you don't say, okay, this is the skill we're going to leverage, if you don't leverage that and then package it where it's, hey, we do content automation for SEO. We make sure that the structured data is in place, that you have a Google Knowledge Graph. If you don't, we do these couple of bullets within that. And this is how much we typically charge clients. That is much better packaging than saying we're going to do SEO and not having a price and then reinventing the wheel. Because if it's structured, and in the case of SEO, so let's say we do AI, SEO optimization / content creation. Like even this, as I'm doing it, like these are two separate things. So you could maybe split those, maybe you sell them as a bundle, but you're going to be doing both. Because if you're making content and you're posting on a blog, if you're not SEO optimizing it, then you're an idiot. So then you'd say, okay, we're packaging this and we charge 4K or 4,500 for this. We do an exploratory milestone before where after our kickoff call, we're going to give you access to this stuff so that you can go and do it. I charge $500 for that. But if we land on the proposal, I'll refund you that. We'll use it as a discount towards the project delivery. So then it ends up being 4. right? But they feel like they've won because you gave them the discount and you're not doing free work. So it plays into a lot of that stuff. But that would be an example of a structured offer versus non-structured, where I just thought of talking about this because I've done it non-structured. It's a pain for me. It's a pain for the client. You have change requests, expectations aren't set right, ends up being annoying. I also had another client that I'm going to be working with, and it's not clear what the structure is because maybe the client relation is really good. So it's just, hey, I trust you. Go do stuff. I want you to explore what's possible. Well, with something squishy like that, where it's I want you to explore what's possible with AI, you could still put structure to it. So if you had the conversation, they're saying, I want you to explore what's possible. Okay, we're going to introduce a $500 exploratory milestone. And during that, I'm going to go and I'm going to sift through all the different assets that you have. So maybe you have a website, maybe you have an email funnel, you have all these things and they're chained together to work in unison as a conveyor belt for generating cash. Once I go through all those and do the audit, at that point, then I can come up with a strategy and then I put the structure together. So then you come back and you say, hey, these are the things that I think we should do. I have a list of 40 of them, and this is the one I think we should do first. This is how much it's going to cost, and you name it. Having a name is important. Then it is all set, and everyone feels good about it. This is really exciting. This will be the most important part of this video. So, 6 code agent, what does that mean? Well, think about when you're on a team. Who's involved with delivering the product? Who does what? What's their job description? What are their key expectations? What are their deliverables? Well, that's what I'm doing when I'm mimicking and building out systems for multi-agentic coding workflows. I've built them before, they were okay. I think this is the best one I've ever built. Now, how did I do it? Well, it's just what I said, where I think of what are the different roles on the team. This was actually about the last part, this outcome focused. There's a channel called Automations by Jack. He runs a paid community. It's mainly no code stuff, so very different. But in the case of a team, when I have a new idea, and I was a technical product manager for 6 years, typically when you have a new idea, it starts like this. You have a TPM, technical product manager. They figure out the what and the why of the product. So each role has a box around it. That's number one. Now, that TPM, they go and they think about it. They're outlining the what and the why. Inclusive in the what and the why is the problem statement. Why are they doing this? It'll look the same if you're going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 1.n. They're figuring that out. They have the problem statement. They have the solution statement, maybe some breadboard drawings where they're just sketching some things out with a fat marker. And then after they do that, they'll meet with an architect. So yeah, the solutions architect is typically the best engineer who's not too caught up in the day to day, probably managing some people, but knows the systems like the back of their hand. Then they figure out the refined version. So it's called the what 2.0, the why 2.0, and they figure out the how 1.0. So they're going through this, and why it becomes what 2.0 is because they may know stuff that the technical product manager doesn't. They will. If they don't, they're bad. Or the TPM is really, really good. But I knew that when I met with my architect, that I was going to learn something and that what we were building was going to be an expansion on what I had initially thought. And why we were building it, typically the same, but it gets refined and more context is added, so it's stronger. After that, you'd go to an engineer or maybe a team. In our case, because we're mirroring real life roles with agents, well, you're just going to treat it as one because you can clone those. If they have different stacks, you can modify it slightly, but then you figure out how 2.0. So we've gone from here to here to here. And this is typically what it would look like. And this is just for new features. We're not talking about testing them. We're not talking about doing a workflow for fixing something. That is the second one that I did. So let's call it new bug. We're going to go through this. So when you have a new bug come up, you would typically have an architect or someone. It's basically like an incident response engineer. It's like a fancy way of saying it, but I'm only saying that because that's what I define it as when I'm making the agent. But it's really just who's the guy who's the most qualified, the guy or girl that's most qualified to go through. They're tracing logs, they're doing a root cause analysis. What happened? How do we prevent this? They're doing sequence diagramming. This ideally is already stored somewhere ahead of time, but if they're not, they're going to want to do this to help kind of problem solve. A really good engineer may skip over some of these steps because it's just internal and they want to get it out. But the beauty of leveraging AI for these is you probably maintain the same level of speed and get more output and more documentation. No one likes writing docs. So, in a lot of cases in a startup, it's just going to be one engineer doing all these. But in the case of agents, you can specialize and you should specialize. So then we'd have I'm going to use IR as incident response. So I'd have an IR architect. And it's doing something similar to the architect above, except it's taking in this and this. So these will end up being outputs. And I'm putting little tags around them because when we come and talk to them, well, they're in real life as a human taking in these inputs and then reading them, whether or not it's a different person, they're still thinking, okay, I have this in context. I just made this root cause analysis in my head. I traced through where things are going, how this data flows, what's ingress, what's egress, and they're doing that, right? So in this case, the architect takes in the sequence diagram and the RCA or root cause analysis. They take in the sequence diagram, probably using like Mermaid. And then they come up with the solution, right? So we'll call it like a solution. And then third, you'd actually have the IR engineer. And they're going to take in the solution. They're going to go and do the step-by-step instructions. So that solution looks like a step-by-step set of atomic steps of instructions. And I'm going to be using this. It's not perfect yet, but it's really good. So in the case of the new features, we have step one, the technical product manager. I'm going to be binding these to hotkeys so I can fly through as I'm doing things. You're a senior product manager. Cool. Your task is to create this comprehensive product requirement doc using these tags. And I mentioned that I should use voice here because I want to yap. I want to say, these are all the things. This is how we're going to do it. Or sorry, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. I can touch on how because I know. And most PMs, if they're technical, they'll try to figure out how ahead of time. But you're going to want to fill that sucker up. Then it has all the steps on how to do it. Then it takes the output of the PRD and then brings it into the solution architecture role. So step two. And I have examples of what good steps look like versus bad steps. Bad steps, if there's any sort of infrastructure setup, would just be like, hey, go like do that and do that. Well, no, I need step by step. You'd put the PRD in there, technical product requirement doc, and then also code base because you need that. If it's contextual, so a certain area, then you just put that in there. Maybe if you're using Aider, you could do a wildcard, but you bring those files in. And then third would be the implementation engineer. I started using this yesterday and it worked so well. But I was also really tired, so I haven't completed more work on it. Then when it comes to debugging stuff, it's the same sort of setup. We're working in threes here. If I ran into something, I do exclamation point V1. I'm going to get that RCA from them. That RCA is going to be handed to the solutions architect. I do B2, paste that in there, paste in the sequence diagram. It has its key responsibilities and its output, which is the step-by-step set of, the solutions architect document. And then they take that in. And I think that's step 3. Yeah, there we go. And then they go and they execute. What I think is cool here is this set of flows could be literally a text box. And then it could be an extension in GitHub. I really think that's where it's going. And I think that node-based code editing is going to be a real thing. I'm going to be trying to build this in N8N over the weekend. You can check out ParkerX builds for details on it. And I'll also be posting a bunch of updates in the school. Cool. Yeah, so V1 of that would just be using the text expanders, but I do think a node base makes sense. The question is can you have in N8N, can you have something that's like this, where it's, if I have node 1, which would be step 1, node 2, which is step 3, step 1, step 2, step 3 for the different agents in the case of the new feature thing. Can I have the code base actually run the diffs? Meaning, like, can this be the code base? I have no clue. That's what I want to figure out so that I can go back and forth between these. And I think that that's a magical idea. Let's see what else. I think that's about it for today. I'm splitting these out because the builds would just take too long, and it's not really the right place to do it on this channel. This is about strategy. That's what it's going to be more focused on. But yeah, a little bit just to close, you would have these kind of trees of logic where if it's a feature, then you'd run F1, you'd have human in the loop. So I'm looking at it. You'd have F2, human in the loop. F3, straight to GitHub. Afterwards, this would actually be a new flow. So you see entire multi-million-dollar companies that VCs are shoveling cash into that just literally do this one flow. And this is probably 4 or 5 agents working in orchestra to deliver that. So that would be something that you could go and you'd reverse engineer. What are they doing? How are they prompting? And this was based off of some info that I pulled off of I want to say the Klein Discord. Someone made this really cool loop basically for debugging where identify the bug, describe it in detail, maximize observations. You'd have an analysis agent and a validation loop. That's what agents are, by the way. This is not my definition. This is Anthropic's definition, but agents are tools and looping. It's pretty much it. Tools are the things that you saw with MCP. They're functions that are basically really well defined. I'm trying to think of the word right now, but it's escaping me. That was why I'm paused. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, make sure you like the video, drop a comment below. I'd love to get some questions because then we can start the video off with questions. If you want to go deeper on this stuff, you can join our research lab over at Trouble Free. It's going paid today. We're going to want to lock in the price. This is just how it works, right? I can't make awesome content for that without funding it. And it's going to be around for a long time. We're following Dunbar's law, which states that you can't have more than 150 human connections that you're close with. So we cap it at 150. And it's $39 today. It's going to be about 150 soon. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video, aka tomorrow on Friday, March 22nd. See you then.